Om pramadina nasandeha kim karishyami vrittiman utpadyante vilyante buddhascha yata jale. Om shantihi shantihi shantihi. Ignorance is unreal, and therefore, how can it cause any real doubt? Therefore, what should the yogi do with this mind and its constant projections? He should allow them to rise spontaneously, and then dissolve them all back at the end of the day, like bubbles into water. Om peace, peace, peace. Om mano nabudi nashariram indriyam tanmatram bhutani nabuddha panchakam. Aham kritas chapi vyat swarupakam. Tam ishvam atmanam upuiti shashvatam. Om shantihi shantihi shantihi. That one attains to the supreme Brahman, who dissolves senses, elements, subtle senses, energy, coverings, sheaths, mind, intellect, and ego, all into the Atman, the indivisible self of mankind. Om peace, peace, peace. Om Sahana, Om Sahana Bhavatu, Sahana Bhunaktu, Sahaviryam Karavavahai, Tejasvi Navaditamastu, Ma Vidveshavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May Brahman, the reality, protect us. May Brahman sustain us. May Brahman illumine our thinking process. May we not find fault with each other, with the teachings, or with the world. And may what we study be a source of inspiration to us eternally. Om peace, peace, peace. May peace be unto us, and may peace be unto all. Om Hari Om. Swagatam, welcome all again here on this 9th and final day of Navaratri. If you follow the Hindu calendar and the holy days there, then you'll find out that India has probably the only country that has definite worship of the Divine Mother reality and takes it very seriously. She's got her own religion, she's got her own scriptures, and she's recognized as the underlying substratum that animates everything, all worlds, all beings. She does that through her prana, or through that life force that flows through everything, but she also animates our thoughts through psychic prana, much subtler kind of energy, far beyond the wherewithal of physics to detect. And this is the 9th day, so final. Navaratri actually means 9 days and 9 nights. So last night was the 8th day. We did our 2.5 hour puja downstairs. I was thinking, people are saying, "Oh, Babaji, I can only sit a half hour. I encourage you to try and sit an hour each day." But actually you sat 2.5 hours last night in meditation. So you can do it. And I ask you to be fully focused on everything that the puja symbolized and all the worship, because we do it as a non-dual worship. It's not idol worship. And it's not idol worship either. It's very, very exacting and very concentrated, and Holy Mother herself has said that if where the picture of Sri Ramakrishna is kept and tended properly, he will come through that image and manifest himself in your life. It may not be like Christ on the road to Damascus coming to Paul or something, but then again it may be. But as we just read from the Gospel, Brahman doesn't exist in the world. There's no God here. God is beyond, and you have to raise yourself to a transcendent level outside of senses and objects and senses and so forth. That's why I just chanted that one who dissolves manas, buddhi, sharira, tanmatra, bhutani, bhutapanchakam. Those are like the 5 elements and 5 senses in the mind complex. And that one who can dissolve that then realizes this transcendent reality. And to that one belongs peace, and to none else, say the Upanishads. And besides, then I also chanted about these dissolving these like bubbles into water at the end of every day. See, that's your meditation practice. Doesn't matter what happened. In fact, well, maybe it does matter what happened. If you won the lottery, if someone insulted you, that should all be dissolved. It's all unreal. You should not take anything with you into deep sleep. And you should awaken out of deep sleep in a refreshed state of mind, as if you never slept. Brahman never sleeps, so why should you? Let the body rest. But if thine eye be single, you shall know the truth. So keep that mind's eye open at all times. Practice doing that. Longer and longer periods of time of conscious meditation will do that for you, until you'll be like my teacher, Swami Sheshanandaji Maharaj, here in Portland for so many years. I was just living in a state of yogic insomnia. As our founder, Lex Hickson, said, yogic insomnia. So we had our puja last night, and I must say I was hoping I could come down from that level in order to give this class, because it put me in a high state. It doesn't always do that, but it alters the state of awareness. But last night was particularly difficult to come downstairs. I was seeing people as flames. Then I had to shift gears and come upstairs with all this food spread out that had been blessed, you see, and all of you look like tongues. They're different kinds of flame. So I could sometimes having a little bit of difficulty recognizing some of you. Who's that again? So the mind does go into this higher state of reality, and it can be done during worship. It can also be done in meditation, of course. But all of these are as one. The 4 yogas are as one. And Sri Ramakrishna was just telling us that through the Gospel, this exceptional manuscript. That is, there's nothing the like of it in this particular day and time. Everyone must read the Gospel of Ramakrishna, whether you're his devotee or not. It has everything about spiritual life, philosophy, and religion in it that is worthy of speaking. And of course a lot of cautionary things that he said too about the world and how to dissolve it effectively. And that's what we've been looking at with this scripture, which is not even in a book form yet. I had to go and find it and print it out for you. By the way, I didn't mention yesterday that anyone who doesn't have a copy of this can get one from me. We're about halfway through the Upanishad. There's 64 slokas, and we passed 32 yesterday. And so we'll still be studying it for a few more visits. You know, I come 4 times a year to San Francisco ashrams and Portland ashrams. And we take up as many slokas as we can out of the particular Upanishad or scripture that we're studying each of those times. San Francisco last week we finished the Svetashvatara Upanishad, which Portland finished over a year ago. So we will be engaging in this for a few more visits. So if you want a copy, let us know, as SRV or myself, and we can get you a paper copy, or I think we can even send it through the email and you can print it out. There are 108 of these. 99 have not been commented on by a great soul like Shankara. So those are the authentic ones, those 9 or 10 that he commented on in 700 AD approximately. And the other 99 is sort of up to us to unwrap of this time. He encouraged us to look into Upanishad because Vedanta is Upanishad. Veda Anta means the end of the Vedas, and if you look at the end of the Vedas, you'll find these 108 Upanishads. And those are the non-dual scriptures of India. Many Hindus don't even study them. They're Hindus, so they're into Hinduism, gods and goddesses, and that's all well and good. Or ancestor worship, which is not so well and good some of the time, but you come upon these non-dual scriptures and you've really come to the cream of India's Sanatana Dharma. And you need to scoop that off the top and turn it into butter, as it were, and then enjoy it, savor it. And that's actually one of the words that was used in one of these slokas that we had studied last summer. You must savor it. And that's called contemplation, and that's kind of the tone and tenor of all the charts we took yesterday. That is, we had several charts where we looked into ways of dissolving the mind stream, basically, as was cited in these last few slokas we took up. That is 32, 33, 34, and 35. There's only one chapter in this Upanishad. It's rather short, so just Adhyatma Upanishad 32, 33, 34, 35. We ended up with this chart. Somebody made the comment to me, said, well, they're talking about tat tvam in slokas 30 and 31, so aren't they unwrapping a Mahavakya for you? A Mahavakya is a great statement. And it says here, we need to contemplate these great statements. But I said that I didn't think that this Upanishad was really unwrapping a Mahavakya. If you go into the Brahma Sutras, you'll find Mahavakyas unwrapped for chapters. One word they can take and comment on it forever. You really need a guide for the Brahma Sutras. Those are one of the other non-dual scriptures of India. But in the Upanishads, and particularly in this one, what I'm heading for is to, and since it's Divine Mother time, Navaratri, Sri Durga Puja, trying to bring out this fact again and again that she's hiding in all words, that words are very powerful and very important, and as was listed there in those slokas, like 33, to truly listen is to pursue, by means of profound sentences, their powerful import. That's to truly listen, not just surface listening or intellectual listening, but actually, I would say, like science has studied the object so much that it can detect atoms and split them. You need to go outward. That's going outward, and you need to go inward and find out that there are particles of intelligence in these words that correspond to your own thinking process. In fact, everything has come out of the mind in Vedanta, in yoga, in Tantra, in Buddhism. And these are mind-only schools. They think the mind is at the hub of everything, not nature. And of course, the self is unmanifested. It's never really involved in things. Maya makes it look like it is, so then here we end up worshipping our egos instead of God. That's kind of a harsh fact that was pointed out by these Eastern Swamis that come over. Oh, I see, you're just worshipping your egos and calling it God. See, but you haven't really seen God yet. So it's a stark reminder that we need to go deeper. That's why I chanted just now, dissolve the mind, the senses, the energies and all that. Dissolve that back into, and along with ahamkritas chapi, along with the ahankara, the ego, back into Brahman. So if you only go as far as an intellectual frame of reference, that is a scientist or physicist or so forth, and you've based your view of the world on the five senses and the five objects only, then you haven't penetrated very deeply into the nature of reality. And that's why you hear the word relativity all the time, and you never hear the word reality. So, in fact, even in theological circles, you don't hear the word reality. You hear heavens and so forth, but those have form. We're talking about something that's beyond form here, that has been cited by Buddha, that has been understood as the light of the world by Jesus, and has been for thousands of years on display inside of the hearts of the Atman of seers and sages. They're actually looking at this and playing in this ocean of consciousness, whereas others are falling into this ocean of suffering all the time and coming back with these samskaras in their head. that they can't get free of. So to really listen, the Upanishad is saying, it goes on to say, on the other hand, ordinary thinking consists of perceiving thought as being consistent with mere reason. Mere reason. This is kind of a look down the nose at that, you see. But it's actually very important to the Vedantas too, that you follow reasoning as far as it will take you. Like I was saying yesterday, if you looked away right now and I disappeared into this side door, and you looked back, you'd ask yourself, does Babaji really exist? See? But my absence proves I exist. It's the absence of things that prove that there's a presence there. As it proves you have a memory, it proves that you've lived before, it proves that you've been there for your own death and watched it many times, it proves that you're on a merry-go-round, a carnival, and you're eating cotton candy for dinner and hot dogs, and then when you get going around in the merry-go-round, what happens? You don't want to be standing too near that merry-go-round with sick people, see. So you need to get this detachment, this distance from Maya, and India is all about that. Every Indian darshan is about that. Yoga, Vedanta, Buddhism particularly, but Samkhya as well. But even Tantra, it wants to examine everything, but once it examines it, it wants to make the conclusion, Siddhanta. As they call it, Yantra, Mantra, Tantra, Siddhanta, Vedanta, you see. Yantra is like, positions. It's like whee. What did the snail say when it got on top of the tortoise's back? Whee. So this is the tortoise mudra. You offer flowers. I was offering flowers, very slowly to the Divine Mother and to the deities last night with this mudra. So yantra is mudra and design. You saw me painting the floor with Ganges water in certain designs so I could sit there, that it sanctified the space and chased everything away. And then you can actually welcome the Divine Mother. She will come as a presence. And I told you at the beginning of the puja, watch for her. Watch with this inner eye when she descends. Each person, she's always there in all of us at all times. How much covering have we put over her in each individual case? See? So wait for those coverings to fall away by whatever act, yantra, mantra, tantra, or Vedanta, happens to you that you identify with, that's effective for you. Tantra is worship, Vedanta is study, is truth. See? Yoga is practice, Samkhya is cosmology. So whatever way it works for you, take one of those up and dive deep, oh mind, into the ocean of God's beauty with it. So that was the tact I was taking with his mere mention of two words of a Mahavakya, Tattvam, that thou art. Tattvamasi is the full statement. But what I'd like to do is to help us bring out the hidden power of Shakti in everything. It's going to be a far cry before any of us see Brahman, a formless Brahman. That's called Samadhi. Westerners are lagging horribly in that regard. And they'll lag more and flag and lag until the red flag goes up, and then they're faced with their own death. And they'll consider it to be real when it's not. Death is an illusion. My teacher was talking to a scientist once. Matter is indestructible, he said, the scientist. And Swamiji said, matter's not indestructible, and it's not destructible either. It's unoriginated. That stopped the scientist's ego in its tracks, you see. What's unoriginated mean? It means it never had a beginning, middle, and end, and neither did you. Everything is always, all the time is always present. That's your true nature. It doesn't go in cycles. The cycles are your dream of it, inside of it. But everything stays in one place, stationary, absolutely still, peaceful, quiet, serene, beyond birth, beyond death, timeless, spaceless. That's the nectar of naturalness. That's your own awareness. And you need to identify with that as the only reality and put Maya behind you. That's what Christ meant when he said, "Get thee behind me." He wasn't talking about a devil with horns and a pitchfork. That's silliness. If God doesn't exist here, then certainly a devil doesn't. Or you could say this is a devil's dance that's going on around us. But where's the devil? In your own sankalpa process, in your own mental projection. So do away with that, get it behind you, and call your true nature forward, and live in it, day to day, moment to moment, breath to breath. Waking, dreaming to deep sleep, 24 hours. Imbibe it and live in it. And so bringing this wisdom of Mother out is happening at all times if you have a mind to, you see. The power that's causing me to speak, my tongue, the wisdom that's in the words, all coming from this divine Shakti. Adhyatma Shakti, they call her. Or Father of Yoga called her Chit Shakti. Buddhists call her Pragyaparamita. So wherever you go, you find this hidden presence of Divine Mother Reality within everything and everywhere. And so the last chart we looked at was a yogic chart. I brought out the 4 kinds of samadhi that we probably are actually having, some of us, but we don't know we're having them. And we're not having them for any length of time, see, so it doesn't change our samskaras, it doesn't change our mind. If transformation takes place at all, it's in the mind. That's what I just chanted, ignorance is unreal, so how can it cause any real doubt? So you're entertaining these doubts and you think you're ignorant, but you're this all-knowing supreme self, which is the Lord seated in your heart. So meditate upon yourself as the Lord seated in your heart. That's straight out of the Upanishads, directly quoted. And then, get everything else behind you. And pretty soon you'll start having these samadhis and you'll start to recognize them, and then when you recognize them you can extend their life. They need a longer shelf life than you're giving them. They don't have expiration dates, you see. So you need to entertain the fact that I'm meditating on objects, for instance. That would be the first thing. See, the object is not for your pleasure, and it's not for, it'll get stolen, it'll become bored with it, it'll decay. So many things the object will do to let you down. So what is an object? It's an archa, it's a symbol that God exists, that Brahman is existence. Any symbol you take can point you inwards, but if you take a more sacred symbol, like stone Buddha or picture of Sri Ram Krishna Paramahamsa or something, and meditate on it, then you'll begin to get the essence out of it. If you can get the essence out of the atoms that make up a car, then you can certainly get the essence out of the word car. When that scientist talking to my teacher said that, if you could gather together all the power in the atoms in that vehicle over there, you could blow up 3/4 of the world, he said. And my Swami looked at him and said, what good would that do you? So you need to split a different kind of atom. You need to go to a different level of consciousness where there's a vibration with particles that you can split. And you release not a power for destruction, but a power for the highest good of all beings. You're splitting the curtain of Maya with atoms of intelligence. Jnana matra. There's even a Sanskrit word for it. They're particles of intelligence. You use them to concentrate. Those who can concentrate can split through appearances, through obstacles. Last night we offered Ganesha a flower. See, Agajanana Padmarkam, Gajanana Maharinisham, Ekadanta, and so forth. Gave him a mantra, you see. I didn't actually finish that analogy I brought up. First yantra, then a mantra, you see. So the symbol, then the word for it, and then tantra, you worship. And that's just the point I was making. You worship everything. You respect everything. Beyond respect, you reverence it because it's a symbol for Brahman. It's not Brahman, don't get that confused or you'll get attached to objects. There's no God here. There's no God in the world, but the world is in God. So you just have to look at it properly to see this. So yantra, tantra, mantra, then tantra worship, then Vedanta. You come to some sort of conclusion. It's called Siddhanta. Vedanta Siddhanta Niruktiresha Brahmaiva Jivaham Sakalam Jagatcha. All of this is Brahman, the Upanishads say. Time, space, living beings, the world, it's all Brahman. So with that in mind, you can make a final conclusion, and then that is Vedanta. That's Advaita Vedanta. You've come to the deepest layer of consciousness. We'll look at that in a chart called The Meaning of Objects that I'm getting to soon. So having gone through that, we see that first of all you have objects as meditation. Alamban, as Father of Yoga called them. Then you have to take those objects back and think of them as thoughts. All these objects here are my own thoughts. That's how they came into being. God didn't create them. Nature couldn't have done it by itself. They're my thought made manifest. They're intelligence concretized, sitting in front of me. That one connection will let you go one step further back inside of yourself. If you're doing this in the right way, it's a kind of samadhi. It's a pursuit of samadhi. Shankara gave us permission. He said, go practice having samadhi. It's like right there in the Vivekajamani. We think of the word samadhi or nirvana and we think, oh, that's far off. Well, maybe so, but we can step towards it through simply taking these objects and connecting them to ourselves. How do you do that? Earth connects to smell. Water connects to taste. Sight connects to fire. Touch connects to air, and hearing with ether. That's the first practice in yoga. What do people out here think the first practice in yoga? Learning 15,000 different positions to twist my body into like a pretzel. That's not yoga. Yoga starts with making these precious connections and then proceeds by mastering the prana, not becoming a billows. See, or is it a bellows? It's a billow that's a bellow. So basically, you're a breathing machine and you think, oh, I've done my practice today, and you walk away and you haven't even come close to the point that man does not live by bread alone. That there's this life force inside which causes everything to move, which animates everything. And then you get stuck with that and you're stuck on the level of the ancestors with the prana. So you have to go beyond that too. She's waiting behind the prana, even deeper than the psychic prana. She's called Chit Shakti. She animates the intelligence of all beings. And those who don't see her are not that intelligent. Or they're intelligent only on the physical level. But they're imbeciles everywhere else. They're mere babies in spirituality. So you sit and you breathe and so forth, but when you do that, you have to know that the whole world connects to you, and you've alienated yourself from it. So you need to find a way to get back, so you practice these connections. In English, the best word is conjunction. There's different conjunctions. We studied that in the Adhyatma Upanishad when we took it up last year. Sacred conjunctions, they're called. And mankind in today's day and age, and particularly in the West, has completely forgotten those. So to get into yoga is to get back into union. So objects first, deify them, know that they've come out of your mind, and then get to the mind where they started and turn them off. You can't just sit down and have some meditation teacher tell you, okay, empty your mind. All right, I'll try that. 2 seconds later, I failed. I can't still my mind. Well, then breathe. Well, that helps a little. But this is where philosophy comes in. Jnanam, and especially knowledge of your true self, not lower knowledge, which is science and mathematics and arts and science, all that. That's fine in its own sphere. But you're a yogi, you're seeking the origins of things. a good scientist should do that. And the origins lie inside. You go too far out, you find particles that are changing the billionth of a second. It's like they have no life. Can't go up to the subatomic particle and say, get a life, because it only lasts for a billionth of a second. And that's the sand Christ talked about that you should not build your house on. You have to go to the bedrock, to no vibration. So this is what you're doing. You're quelling the vibrations of your mind by knowing the source and by tracing it all back to you and leaving God and devil out of the quotient. Patanjali did not, he actually said, you do not need to believe in Brahman or God to practice the system. Just practice it and God will show up to you, is what he was saying. Sort of to the side. See? Oh, don't practice God. They'll get it later. See? So, objects, then thoughts of objects. You're in two different kinds of samadhi there, and then all of a sudden you get bliss. And this is a problem. It's one of the obstacles to enlightenment is to have attachment to bliss. This is the fourth of 4 obstacles in yoga. So let it go. Let it happen. But don't follow your bliss. Be a new age bliss bunny. That's not going to get you anywhere. Go deeper, and you'll find out that there's an ego behind that bliss, and that bliss belongs to the ego, and that's where you've been worshiping the ego and not God. Now you need to transcend and pierce through that ego. The ego turns, as it were, and looks to a bigger light called Brahman. It's sort of like, a glowworm came out at night, see, and it was so proud of its light, you see, and it looked up and saw the moon and went back underground. Then the moon got outshouted by the sun, you see, and it disappeared. So there's greater and greater light. So the ego has to give up its light, its happiness, its contentment, its bliss into Brahman in order to have enlightenment anyway. So just a quick run through, and here's all the things that you go through. 5 senses, 5 subtle senses, 5 gross objects, 4-fold mind, the 5 tanmatras, which are subtle elements, like in your dream tonight. You still have earth, air, fire, water, and ether in your dream. Sorry, folks. Those are subtle elements, and they're missing in our ideology in the West. And then individual ego and the intelligence. Finally, you get to the universal mind, Mahat, and then you divide it, you dissolve that all into alinga, what is formless. And don't stumble on formless nature, because that can be a problem. We said that everything exists at all times, right? And that's the sentient self. But it has this power to break into form. And the mechanics of that, in a nutshell, are that form comes from formlessness. And with a closer inspection, you'll find out that all of these things have seeds. This is manifested nature, and it all comes from unmanifested nature. Prakriti. See? And so it has 2 faces. So you get into a linga, and you think I've succeeded in dissolving everything, but you've still got these seeds of everything waiting there. And you may water them, and that's how rebirth happens. What did Patanjali say were the 2 things yesterday? The 2 diseases of the mind. The first was rebirth. Desire for rebirth. Slap! And what was the second one?
Being born without discrimination.
Being born without discriminative wisdom. That's a beautiful teaching that he was giving to who? To the teenage Sri Ram, the avatar of the age. He was giving it to that young boy. This was the avatar of the age, and only 12 people on earth knew it at the time. Vishishta was one of them. So he took over Sri Ram and taught him. So don't stumble on unmanifested prakriti. You're looking for a supreme unmanifested state. Krishna says, I have 3 bodies. I have my manifested state, which is all of this, hearing, tasting, touching, seeing, smelling the objects, and so forth. I have my unmanifested state, which is nature in formless condition, seed state, and I have my supremely unmanifested state. My devotees come there. So they don't trip on formless nature on their way to get to their formless self. Formless nature is formless with a small f. lowercase, and your true self is formlessness with an uppercase F. And then you can get into Mahanidra and dissolve the whole thing effectively. So we went through that chart. Let's go on with the actual slokas so we make some headway in the scripture. 35, let's read what we took yesterday, 3 slokas. 32 says, only through the exclusion of Maya and ignorance do God and Jiva equal one supreme spirit. It's very beautifully put. You shut Maya out of the picture, you get rid of your own ignorance, then you can say I'm one with Brahman. Not until. Christ wasn't walking around saying I and my Father are one, till he went into the wilderness and proved it to himself. Buddha went into that same wilderness and for 49 days sat under the bo tree and proved it to himself that he was Buddha nature. 40 days and 40 nights, 49 days, Sermon on the Mount, Sermon on Vulture Peak. Wasn't it the same being? You're waiting for the advent of Christ for 2,000 years. He's already come 4 times. And what does that matter if you want to argue? He should have followed his original teachings. Not wait for him again. Does he have to come back and take a body for you? Doesn't he know that rebirth is the first disease of the mind? Isn't he going to stay away from it? Why did Buddha say, I'm gone and gone forever? Oh, architect of Mara, what we call Maya, you see. I have seen thee finally. It was in his deep meditation. Now, I will not build any more homes. I will not build homes of wood. I will not build homes of stone. I will not build homes of flesh and bone. And finally, I will not build homes of wise conceptualization. I'll transcend body and mind, he's saying, and nature. All in one swoop. I'm gone and gone forever. So why drag them back here? I was there 2,000 years ago, and I told you what you need to know. You're still waiting for me to come back? Get a clue. On the other hand, I didn't finish that. Only through the exclusion of Maya and avidya, ignorance, do God and Jiva equal one supreme spirit, the impartite being. It is consciousness and bliss as indicated by the seers. Sloka 33. To truly listen is to pursue by means of profound sentences their powerful import. On the other hand, ordinary thinking consists of perceiving thought as being consistent with mere reason. 34. Meditation is indeed the exclusive attention of the mind that is fixed on the import rendered indubitable through listening and thinking. So they're not giving a real high formless definition for meditation here. They're saying that, as I've been saying, you can't just jump from the lowest step to the highest step. Hear some Zen Roshi or some teacher tell you that you should meditate on non-dual awareness, and you're not even satisfied the criterion of all the steps between the lowest and highest step, and you're going to jump to the highest step and not come tumbling down later. That's why we aren't producing any saints and seers in the West. Well, saints in Europe, but where are the seers? Where are the enlightened souls? And particularly in America. If you were going to come back and help America again, and you should, then where are the parents for it? Where are the parents who are learning this Dharma? You'll have to go to India, or Tibet, maybe China, or possibly Japan. You'll have to find parents that know the truth and can teach it to you. That's the purpose of life, not parents and children. The world is a huge hole, and your relatives are vipers inside of it. Who said that? Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. So he said, men are mere worms. And people thought he was being real critical. So they asked Holy Mother after he passed away, what did he mean by men are mere worms? Oh, he was speaking of the backbiters, the critical, the fault finders, the evildoers. Men are mere worms. Well, there are plenty of those, but where are the illumined souls, you see? I'm getting a little impatient here. I'm getting antsy. I want to see America produce a few illumined souls like our founder, Lex Sixon. I want the direction to be going that way. And then I want those souls to be teaching it to their children. That's how you rebuild a society. No other way. Not through science and domination over other nations and violence, and those are against yoga. So he's telling you here that you need to take this definition of meditation where you're listening carefully and you're contemplating. Shruti yukti anubhala. You need to do that and then sit in meditation over time. Pretty soon you will be able to quell your thoughts, and your very thoughts will give you bliss. See, that happens about here in Savichara. You see, my thoughts are giving me bliss. And you can spend your whole life in blissful thought then. I would say, don't hang out too long there. Get the truth and go on. But there are people who just live in their thoughts. And they're not just indrawn, non-participatory kinds of souls, but they're happy there. They're content in their own mind. So they must have found some secret to peace, contentment. You need peace first and foremost, she said, Holy Mother. Everything else will come after that, but you cannot get anything without collectedness of mind. Restlessness of mind will not net you anything, and certainly slothfulness will not. So you need that concentration of mind. And then we come to this new sloka that we'll take up now. Concentration is said to be the mind which, outgrowing the duality of meditator and meditation, gradually dwells exclusively on the objects of meditation. It is like a flame in a windless place. What did Patanjali say, or what did Sri Krishna say? Om yata dipo nivatasto nengate sopama smrita yogino yata chitasya yunjato yogamatmanaha. Like a candle in a windless place, the yogi sits, you see. And the flame is unflickering, so his mind also is unwavering, just like a candle in a windless place. And he meditates deep upon the Atman and steeped in yoga. Yogam atmanaha. See? So right here you find it. It is like a flame in the windless place, the Upanishad says. So you must outgrow the duality of meditator and meditation, and the act of meditating too. That's a triputi. I said yesterday that one of our problems in the West is that we're having experiences and considering them to be of greatest value. It's like people you meet, they say, I live in the present. And I tell them, oh, that's too bad. I live in the eternal moment. The past, the present is part of the three phases of time, you see, past, present, and future. So what the present means to them is, oh, I've kind of shut out brooding on the future and the past and so forth, and I can just have my pleasurable experiences right here in this moment, you see. But that moment passes into the next moment. In fact, that's the first secret to 6 doorways to yoga, is the passing of time. But they're not using it in a yogic way. They're using it for boga, not yoga. You know what boga means? Enjoyment, pleasure. Yoga means austerity. That which is sweet in the beginning, but sour at the end, you don't want that. That's pleasure. But that which is sour in the beginning and turns sweet in the end, you want that. That's austerity. That's yoga. That's practice. Intense practice. You want to take yourself to task. That's the only way to purify mind, intellect, ego complex. And if you do that, the body and senses will follow suit. They have no other choice than to follow you. And that's particularly why my teacher, Swami Sheshanandaji Maharaj, used to say, we must not give power to the senses, we must get freedom from the senses. Don't give freedom to the senses, get freedom from the senses. That's the first step of yoga. Because otherwise you're going around in this little circle of boga, enjoyment. So get beyond that into this practice of yoga and outgrow that duality. Get rid of that idea of I live in the present moment. Get rid of all 3 phases of time and live in the eternal moment instead, as a detached witness consciousness of all phenomena that goes on. And dwell exclusively on the object of meditation. So this actually goes very nicely with this chart. the real meaning of objects. A good lesson for us all that comes both from yoga, Vedanta, and Buddhism, all three really. First quote there says, "Most beings beholding physical objects such as trees, animals, planets, etc., assume them to be real or actual. However, modern science has uncovered the atomic particle tree. Philosophy teaches about the illusory tree, its display being only an appearance. The luminaries, going deeper, speak of the Atman tree or Buddha nature tree. Thus there are three levels in existence, the external, the internal, and the absolute. Knowing about this triple subdivision, along with the nature of each, the human mind espies the truth about all manifestation and swiftly frees itself from bondage to objects." Science hasn't quite gone far enough, but it's on the trail of what the ancient rishis of India knew 5,000 years before Jesus. That's all of this is shifting sands. It's all made of vibration. They know that because they studied Om first, the word, and then they saw how everything came out of Om and trickled down towards gross objects, that this is just Om, that's just Om, everything is just Om. Who does that sound like? Gaudapada in the Mandukya Upanishad. So, some good points made there. Dalai Lama used to teach that way. You see that tree? That's just the illusory tree. It's not really what it is. The next level of it is this particle tree. If you could see it like an electron microscope for eyes, then you would see that it has all these changing particles in it. You see, something's keeping it together, but oh well, we'll forget about that for now. We'll just get attracted to the outer sensation and forget about what's holding it all together. And don't breathe a word about Gaia, the Divine Mother, who's holding it all together, the Chit Shakti. But then beyond the atomic particle tree, you have to go. You see, that you'll find the Buddha nature tree. That's its treeness. See? Gold has its goldness, man has his manliness, woman has her womanliness. That's what Vivekananda said. I can't give you much because I'm just a monk. I can't give you money and all that, but I can give you the secret of the goldness of gold, the silverness of silver, the manliness of man, and the womanliness of woman. These I give you freely. And so he's giving us wisdom, which is priceless. The goldness in gold cannot pay, for the true meaning of mountains, stones, what they really are saying to you if you approach them, that you could get bliss out of any object, not just pleasure. We're talking about bliss. That's different. Pleasure passes, bliss stays with you. And that was actually a problem for Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, because he couldn't talk to us unless he came down to this plane, but his mind was always in bliss, so you have to bring him down, you see. "Oh, here, Master, take a drink of water," you see. He'd sip the water. And then he'd say, a few minutes later, "Oh yes, I see, I'm on the plane of the 5 elements now. See, I can function." Sometimes he'd go, "Come down, Mother Kundalini, come down. Leave the head, come to the heart. But don't go any lower." He liked the heart chakra best. So those 3 levels, or you could call them gross, subtle, causal, right? The causal has a connection with the absolute, so it's allowable. Gross, subtle, and causal. Gross is out here, all of these things. Subtle is in here, all the mind things. And causal is formless, bridging into the formless Brahman. If you trace origins, you'll find that, but you have to do it in meditation with your third eye open, and at least your heart open, or at least your mind open. There on the side is another kind of indication of it. It starts with the primal vibration Om, right? Then cosmic awareness comes. That's intelligence, really. And then ego-mind complex. Then thought and concept happen. Then the projected worlds, lokas they're called, or akashas. Then the subtle senses. Then the subtle elements. Then the thought objects. Then gross senses. Then gross elements. and solid objects. You're just coming right down the spectrum, you see. Consciousness does that when it wants to get into a form. It may stop at any one of these, and you're in the kingdoms of heaven, you see. You haven't come down to earth because you're not pulled there by your karma. But if you're pulled back to earth by your karma, then you're going to have to encounter these lower tattvas, lower principles. These are cosmic principles. And remember, again, I'll remind you that when we say cosmic in the West, we look up into space. That's not what they mean by cosmos or cosmology. Sometimes in the West we say cosmology and we think of painting our faces with lots of powders, and that's cosmetics. No, don't confuse it. Cosmology in India is inner worlds, absolutely, with no, and you are supposed to meditate on them and encounter them, because why? Because when you leave this body, that's what you'll encounter. Unless you go absolutely blank, you're just a worldly fool, first-class fool, and you haven't done any preparation for leaving the body before you, and in fact you forgot your purpose for coming into the body for the first place. That one is born to no purpose who, having been given the boon of a human body, is unable to realize God in this lifetime. Who said that?
Master.
Great Master Sri Ramakrishna. You're born to no purpose. In other words, you came here to realize God, and you, somewhere along the way, you forgot completely. You chose your own parents about this level, you see. Then you got into the fetus and came out, and you had forgotten everything. And the great souls, yes, they will forget too, for about 4 or 5 years, 6 years. See, there were souls in India, Christ-like, were remarkable children. India has produced many Christs, many potential Christs too. And immediately they saw the trouble they were in Maya, they ran to their teachers. They got mantra, they got initiated, and they realized the truth of life, and the rest of their life was spent helping others. And they were never attached to any of this process. This is the cosmic process, you see. From God's mind on down, they don't want any part of it. They're just there to help you. It's too risky, and even pleasure gets tiring, you see. Even bliss gets a little bit worn out, you see. You want the experience of oneness, Advaita, non-duality. Not that you can't have that here. There are some great souls who can. Basically, this has got a gauge next to it. It's Chit Shakti herself, the psychic prana she controls, and out of the psychic prana, the gross prana. Man does not live by bread alone. It comes from another level. The food, the energy in food, fine, if you're a tongue, you see. But the pleasure is what the tongue gets sidetracked by. But the yogi takes food, eats it consciously, which is, by the way, one of the main concepts or precepts in Kundalini Yoga, and then meditates and takes the energy from that food up the spine and to higher chakras, sublimates the energy in food. And it must be blessed first. There's poison in food. It give you illness. But why do the yogis not get ill very often? It's because they've said mantra over the food, blessed it, then taken it, and now they're sublimating it all the time. Every day, every meal, every bite. It's done all consciously. Is there any other way to them? They look at an unconscious person, why are you doing that? You see, oh, you can blow up the world, you see, with atoms taken from a car. Why would you want to do that? Why do you even want to think that direction? Be the self. Say peace to all. No danger be to me, from me to aught that lives. Those who dwell on high, those who lowly creep, I am the self in all. All worlds, both here and there, do I renounce. All earths, all heavens, all hells. Hells, earths, heaven, do I renounce. Thus cut thy bonds, Sannyasin bold. Swamiji's poem of 13 verses called Song of the Sannyasin. Say peace to all. So, work yourself into a karmic mess, you see. Start trying to dominate other countries and so forth. Why is it, the bumper sticker said yesterday to me, why is it that we kill people who are killing people to show them not to kill people. See, it's all Mayak, turned back in on itself. It doesn't make any sense. So that's why Sri Ramakrishna said, don't try and study Maya. Get out of it and look at it from a distance. If you're in a fog bank, not only can you not see anything, but there are noises. There's a bear over there and a ghost over there. See? But get out, climb a nearby hill, and you see the whole fog bank disappear under the light of the sun. So you can't study the unreal from an unreal position. What was it that Einstein said? Problems created at the relative level cannot be solved at the relative level. You have to go to the next higher level to solve them. So it's the same in spiritual life. You must have this inward ascension ability. So prana, psychic prana, and chit shakti is a good teaching. When you get to the chit shakti, she takes you over, like she did Sri Ramakrishna. Just study his life. He was a collection of popsicle sticks tied together with thread, and she was pulling the main thread. You see, and we just read, looks at the body and says, only a pillowcase. He just knows his true nature beyond the body, like the back of his hand. Well, the other teachings on this chart, there's the external, internal, and transcendent that's mentioned in the first quote. If you want to put it in an actual image, there's the solidified tree, there's the Atmic particle tree, and there's the Buddha nature essence tree that's behind it all. Ram Prasad Sen sings here, "The mind, O mind, this projected world is only a faint reflection of reality, consisting simply of earth, water, fire, air, and ether, arranging and rearranging with intricate beauty, with hypnotic beauty. By attempting to grasp reflected images, we cheat ourselves of true experience. Turn instead to the original and discover the treasure of delight." He sings this in a song. So we cheat ourselves of true experience when we fall down into the deception of these lower tattvas. Therefore, here's the rules for pertinent to objects. Yogic rules. Number 1, know that objects are empty. A, empty of abiding substance. B, empty of the ability to fulfill you. Prove this to yourself. Hopefully you don't take 80 years to do it, like most people do, if they do it at all. Sri Ramakrishna gave a story. Man's dying, wife is there, children are there. He should be thinking about where he's going next, what bardo he's headed into, or how to get there. Instead, he turns his head and looks at the wife and said, "The candle's burning too much oil, please trim the wick." Think about economy all your life and money and miserliness and so forth. That's what you'll think about when you die. So you set up your enlightenment through this life. If you don't come into this life enlightened already, which is the best scenario, then you set it up for yourself over time with practice, with conscious action and so forth. So know that these objects are empty of abiding substance. Quantum physics should have already told you that by now, although not many of those scientists are making the right conclusion. They're still trying to say, oh boy, look at that particle. We can use that to make car wax. You see? There's a better car wax out there, see, that will not let water get in because of these tiny particles. We'll create that. They're not saying, my God, this is all empty. And then on top of that it's not fulfilling because you create a car wax and someone creates a better one. You're in competition, and it's all for the sake of money. Then someone steals your idea and sues you, or you sue them, and you're in Maya. Welcome to Maya's domain, you see. But the seer just sits back and says, empty? Okay, I accept that. Where's the fullness? It's right there. Purnamadaha, Purnamidam, Purnat Purnamadachate, Purnasya Purnamadaya, Purnameva Vashishte. Purna, 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 Purna. Might as well be my one-word mantra. It means full. Everything is full at all times. this emptiness has come out of you. See? And so it needs to be a teaching. Shunyata, they call it in Buddhism. Shunyata. Everything is empty, and that should make you gleeful. It should make you blissful. I finally found the secret, or the penultimate secret to everything, is that all is empty. That's called abhava. No moods anymore. No emotions around it, you see. No attachment to it. And from abhava you can get into maha-yoga, blissful state. You can enjoy all of this without any karma. Enjoy is not the best word there, but you can observe it, you can watch it. You can also detach from it and return to it. See? My teacher said a wonderful thing once. He said, the first teaching you get about is detachment. You need to detach from things, you see. And basically there are 12 levels of detachment. See, there's the... you'll have to leave this chart to see it, but we can go through it quickly if I have it here. I don't see it. So, there is initial detachment of one who tries to control the senses. There is mild detachment, which is intermittent, vague, and weak. There is middling type of detachment, lacking in intensity. There's 4, detachment arising from various difficulties in life. There is detachment which arises from satiety of desires and disenchantment with works. Sri Ramakrishna has a story about pretty much each one of these. There is a detachment that is the beginning of actual detachment, which represents early stage of non-attachment. There's a fundamental or gross stage of authentic detachment, which is not yet fully matured. There's a more mature state of detachment, sometimes called highest state of lower dispassion. There's a high stage of detachment under the influence of which pleasures of life begin to seem painful and insipid. There's a kind of detachment that is very lofty, brought about by jnanam, wisdom, like this dharma, which causes indifference to sense experience and transcendence of all pairs of opposites, like good and bad, pleasure and pain, life and death, virtue and vice. Then there's the most intense form of detachment, short of fully matured vairagya, where a very keen sense of natural abidance is felt. Finally, paravairagya is absolute and supreme detachment, which leaves the mind completely and permanently free of thoughts of worldly objects. So it's a good attending chart with this one, which we are just finishing up in accord with Sloka 35, right? Concentration is said to be the mind which, outgrowing the duality of meditator and meditation, gradually dwells exclusively on the object of meditation. It is like a flame in a windless place. This is Vedantic and Buddhist. They want you just to take a throat and cut right there. This is yogic. They want you to do it by stages. Tantra also will want you to do it by stages in worship. So whatever wherewithal you have developed in yourself, spiritually speaking, in this lifetime, you can take up one of these and render it effective and free yourself in this lifetime. That's the purpose. Freedom is the purpose. Swami Vivekananda passed away on 4th of July to show us there's a different kind of freedom you should be looking at and looking for. Anything we didn't? Oh yes, so to continue on with the second rule about objects. The first again was what? Objects are empty. Empty of substance, empty of the ability to fulfill you. Why empty of the ability to fulfill you? Because they can be lost. They can decay. A thief can steal them. You can become bored with them. There's a whole host of reasons I could have put, if I had more room, on an 8x11. See, about why objects cannot fulfill you, and why actually, obversely, they can get you into a mess of trouble without you even knowing it. See, you can be a worldly person. Oh, this is great. You see, the world is my oyster. But there's a pearl inside of all that. You want to search for that. The second rule around objects is all objects are mental projections. That's a secret that we haven't learned yet very much here. A, there are solidified thought themselves. B, they are not created out of nothing or by God. So those are probably the most succinct ways of explaining that the scriptures hold for you. You can't get something out of nothing because nothing doesn't exist. I mean, I even know a physicist with a t-shirt that says nothing doesn't exist on it. So that, shows that there are people out there thinking in that terms. They know that you can't, like for instance, God created the soul of dust. That's completely metaphoric, if at all, if not worse. You can't create a soul. A soul is here, before all of this came. Maya is making it look opposite, like the world was created through 500 million years, you see, and then hominidae came for a few million of that, you see, and then we developed out of that, and here we are coming to nature after all that time. That's ass backwards. The soul was there at the very beginning, before the worlds were even created. Rig Veda says so, Bible says so, Old Testament says so. So you were there for all of this, and this has all come out of you. That's why these objects are all your own solidified thought. It's just that you've been solidifying for hundreds and thousands of lifetimes. Lord Brahma's life, he's here. Lord Brahman's one day consists of 4,320,000,000 years. Did I say that right? 4,320,000,000. Yeah, I think so. One day and one night of his is also that. So what is a 15 million years or 500 million years inside of the Lord Brahma's life, you see, or even day? You're thinking, oh, how many lifetimes can I have? My teacher used to say, scientists are now trying to convince you that in order to see your relatives, you have to go to the zoo. See, but he says he goes inside to these worlds that are not physical, they're not subject to evolution, and he finds his ancestors and his relatives in the seers, in the sages, in the gods, in the Trinity. See. Those defy time. Those are beyond time and space, particularly beyond physical space. So you're just looking in the wrong direction, and you're seeing through a glass darkly when you look out into the outer world with these five senses and believe what they're telling you. Besides, they're talking evolution, and they're not accompanying it with the law of involution. You never hear about involution. It's just evolution, big bang, with no reason behind it, coming out of a black hole maybe, and then all of a sudden it ends and you're dead. See? So what about involution? The philosophies have talked about taking it all back. You see, you take that back. Somebody insults you. So if nature has insulted you in the end of your 500 million lifetimes, and say, you take that back, and nature will say, I can't. I'm insentient. You did it all. You take it back. So you sit and you meditate, and you dissolve the five elements into the five senses, and those 10 into your subtle senses and subtle elements, and those 20 into your mind, and that mind into the ego, and then you see the ego's facade, and you pop it like a bubble, and you're back at, in the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was God. That's what Jesus was trying to teach fishermen and tax collectors. See? He didn't have the cream of the crop or the brightest bulb of the chandelier for his devotees. See? Oh, you don't understand that? Let's go to the Garden of Gethsemane and meditate. What happened to meditation in Christianity? I have a chart, the difference between prayer and meditation. The upside of both and the downside of both. It's not like I'm saying don't pray, but you should know that you're praying to yourself when you pray. Your true self, that's God. There is no other God here. Have you found another God here than yourself? You're looking up in space still when you say heavens. It's within you. Christ told you that. So you're really praying to your true self when you pray to God. That is you. Svetashvatara Upanishad says that. Meditate upon the Lord as thine own self seated in thy heart. So there's no separation there. You see, that is the true non-duality of India in a sentence, as far as you're concerned as a practitioner. That's why the Upanishad just said, go beyond meditation and meditator. See, you're going to have to encounter these things by stages, and then you're going to have to make that transcendental leap. You see. Be a great Hanuman and jump the ocean. So not created out of nothing. There's always something there. What was that something called? Unmanifested nature. That's where everything came from. God didn't have a hand in it, and all you did was water the seeds in your deep sleep state and bring everything forth. In fact, a case can even be made that if everyone fell asleep at the same time all over the earth, that we'd all be in deep sleep and we'd all see that there are lots of seeds there, and maybe some of us wouldn't water them and come back again. Why? Well, because rebirth is the first disease of the mind. Why does it want to come back here? What has been so thrilling about this that would make you want to live more than one lifetime? There are souls called Videhamuktis who just are called free from bodies. They realize the self in one lifetime, shut it all down, and go back to their source. Sri Ramakrishna said in his reading this morning before the live stream audience joined us, welcome by the way, that some don't want to be sugar, they want to eat sugar. So, that's the bhaktas. They want to eat sugar. They want to be separate from God so they can enjoy the play. We allow that. Of course, it's not up to us to allow anything. We accept it, though. But we happen to think you get to the Father through the Son means to go into your non-dual state and experience that. Be sugar. So we posed that as a trick question to my teacher once. He said, well, Sri Ramakrishna said many people would rather eat sugar than be sugar. What do you think? Those people who are talking like they want to eat sugar have not tasted the sweetness of being sugar yet. So God has form and God is formless. That was Sri Ramakrishna's teaching for this age, because people are tripping up between those two. He used to ask people when they came to him, do you believe in God with form or beyond form? Oh, sir, I believe in God with form. That's very good, but don't think yours is the only way. And he'd say the exact same thing to the Advaitist who came. Oh, God is definitely formless. That's very good, but don't think yours is the only way. So, to cap it all off, he said, God is with form, God is beyond form, but guess what? God is beyond both form and formlessness as well. So you might say he might even be referring to this formlessness of seeds in deep sleep, where we all go in and water them and come back out with the world. We go in there and water the flowers and only the world, and not the weeds, as they say. Pratipaksha bhavanam is the word in Sanskrit. I'm going to water only the flowers, and I'm going to keep water from the weeds. That's my practice from now on. And the weeds began to die away, you see. But if you've gardened yourself, there's some very persnickety weeds out there, and they tend to come back again. Where are they coming from? Like green scum on a lake. Where does it come from? You can brush it away, you can even sweep it off with a net, but next season it comes dancing back out of nowhere, as it were. So back in deep sleep, back in the unmanifested state called avyaktam, or unmanifested prakriti, lie all these seeds for. So, you can use that teaching in many ways. The way he's using it here is that you cannot get something out of nothing. That does not make sense. Everything comes from seeds. It's not just true of this physical world. It's true of your thoughts, seed thoughts. Even true of the bijams that we used last night in puja. Om, Aim, Hrim, Krim, Shlim, Krim, Shring, Shim, Hum, Fat, Swaha. All of these are bijams that are words of power. And the gods know how to use these. Humans don't yet know how to use them. The gods will use them to project worlds of blissful worlds, you see, like very sattvic worlds. The humans are using them to try and get themselves up out of gross worlds and back to the source. It's like calling the gods. Testing, testing, are you there? So that's my comments on you cannot create something out of nothing. That's untenable and unacceptable to the Vedantist. And they're not created by God either. God is not a creator in my tradition. God is a transcendent reality that you have to work your way towards by stages. It's Brahman. That's Allah. See, that's Almighty Father. I don't have any problem connecting those words together in the different religious traditions. That's Asampragata Samadhi. See, that's Nirvana of Buddhism. That's Kaivalya in yoga. That's Fana in the Muslim religion. There are many words for this non-dual state in different traditions. And these seers have seen them. To that one indivisible reality, the seers have assigned many a title. This is the way one sloka begins in the Rig Veda. So, that's a correcting point, B. It's a correcting point. We can correct, with the Vedanta, we can correct our Christian, Jewish view of things and probably get back to what Christ really meant by his sayings. That birds have nests, foxes have holes, but you have no place to lay your head here. Then he can really explain and unwrap his sayings like that. But this A is really more for you to consider. It's a total shift of ideology for the Western person. That all of this has come out of your mind. The collective mind, for instance. Individual mind, you create your own little individual existence. Go on with your gray little study of life, Vivekananda said, you see. As if my life is so important and my ego is so important and everyone else can go to hell in a handbasket. And act that way, you see. But for the collective mind and then finally the cosmic mind, you see that all of this is very pregnant with meaning. That all of this has been produced by my own thinking process. And then I take away all blame from God and devil and nature and so forth. The meaning of objects, the real meaning of objects. So I think we're running out of time for this half. We will start the second half at Shloka 36 and then move on to 37 right away. I've got a teaching for you about the two yogas of the Matri avatar, that is the mother avatar of mother called Sri Sharda Devi, who came as the divine consort of Sri Ramakrishna. And she has proposed two kinds of yogas for you for this age. One's called Buddhi Yoga or Mano Yoga, and one's called Gyanodaya Yoga, knowledge as compassion, and then mind as intelligence. Those two yogas that she's brought out. We'll look at that after the break. Thank you for your kind attentions, and we'll be back in about 15 minutes. We're back, as they say in the broadcasting business, and welcome to the live streaming audience again from Poland, from Hungary, from Iceland. We've been getting emails from people around the world looking in as we get more and more hits for this Vedantic wisdom, Vedanta being that underground river. They talk about nourishing everything on the surface, but unbeknownst to most people, particularly in the West. And like I was mentioning, even in India, there's Hinduism, and there are different sampradayas there, and cults. We mean that in a good way. There are good cults too. But this Vedanta, which is the underpinning of everything in Indian Dharma, all the way back to the Vedas, Vedanta, is this store of wisdom, unparalleled, and in the world, I think, and particularly concentrating on non-duality. If there is a savior there, it's not a savior so much as it is an exemplar. That's how they treat God with form. And also has these secrets like Divine Mother Reality underlying it. And so we look to it with new eyes and fresh attitudes, and hope isn't my favorite quality, but with anticipation and open, welcome arms to entertain these high-minded precepts and ideations. Really, truths is what we call them, facts of spiritual life. And we have been declaring such with this Upanishad, which has been occupying our minds with thoughts on mantra, yantra, tantra, and Advaita Vedanta. It's always got that underlying tenet of that thou art running through it, but it also has this way of approaching divine reality through thinking, contemplation, and meditation. You find all those words existing in even these last 5 or 6 slokas we've studied. So we call that Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana. Shravana means to hear, Manana means to roll it around in your mind, and Nididhyasana means to realize it. So there's even a Satchakaram at the end of that, which means you bring it full circle back to the world. They want, like Vivekananda in this day and age, let's bring the Vedanta out of temples and out of great seers' minds and out of books and make it broadcast to people, especially those who are in need of it due to suffering. Fallen and the lowly ones, patita pavana, they say. But also appealing to us intellectual Westerners. When he came to America in 1893 and made such a huge impression on us at the Parliament of Religions in Chicago, it was about the same time as the first World's Fair, which he was at, and he met Nikola Tesla and other people of the time. When he came, he could have brought many things from India, but Vedanta was what he chose, and he thought that we were just right at that place in our minds where there was intelligence of a kind there, and maybe even a cross-section of us that were becoming dissatisfied with opulence and wealth alone, especially if it began to move to other countries and take it away from them. One of the first yogic precepts is asteya, do not covet the goods of others. So that, along with nonviolence, ahimsa, are the first 2 of the yogic yamas, the very first limb of yoga. So we're not just peacemakers or peace lovers, we're realizers of peace. We want that to be spread broadcast amongst all peoples. And that's why the teaching of the Atman appeals to us. Yes, the Buddhists could say anatman, but their anatman is really our ahankara in Vedanta. Their Buddha nature, that's our Atman. So that just needs to be clarified in terms so that the Buddhists and the Vedantas, which are the very same philosophies really out of India, do not run afoul of each other in any way. Can keep brotherhood. So the Atman, which is in everyone, is equal there in quality and in quantity, they say. Vivekananda clarifies that it's only the vehicle that's got the limitations. The actual essence is the same, but the vehicle has different limitations, or lack thereof, which make it a seer, or make it, an intellectual, or make it a worldly person or a fool. Even an evil person would have that same Atman in it. And even plants and animals, not just the sentient, insentient of science, that rocks and stones have that same reality running through it. They are that definite and decided about that. It's the one reality which remains the same amongst changing things. We chanted that last night in the puja. Nicho nichanam chetanas chetananam. It's the eternal among non-eternal things. It's the intelligence of the most intelligent ones. Those would be the enlightened souls, or rishis. So in that way, we've been hearing thinking, we've been hearing contemplating, we've been hearing meditating, we've been hearing non-duality, the great statements, all in a few slokas. So all of that has to do with the word, really, and the vibration, as we were talking about. In fact, there's ways of singing it, too. I haven't really offered anything today in that way, but this is a beautiful way of saying it. Monopoli Bajakali Icha Hoi Torjaya Chari Guru Data Mahamantra Ivaneshi Japatori Monopoli Bajakali Icha Hoi Torjaya Chari Guru Data Mahamantra Ivaneshi Japakori Mono Boli Bajakali. O mind, meditate on the mystery of Mother Kali, using any method of worship you please, or simply breathe day and night her holy name as the living seed of transforming power planted by the Guru in your heart. That's the mantra, the word, how you think upon it, how you consider it, and how you can trace it all the way back to the inception of everything, the primal origin. Goes on to say in verses I didn't sing, consider the act of lying down as devoted offering to her, and allow your dreams to become radiant meditations on the Mother. Turn your dreamscapes into meditations. As you wander through countryside or city, feel that you are moving through Mother Kali. The trees are her hair, and you're walking across the top of her head or scalp, and everything is Mother Kali. All sounds you hear are her natural mantras. So there are some supernatural mantras, no doubt, but all sounds. I used to joke about that. I grew up in a family with all musicians, and I was the only cellist, and my brothers and sisters were violinists. Early violin playing is not natural mantra. But once they get the point, then the scratching goes away, the cat scratching and yowling, and starts to make some beautiful sounds, like playing the Bach double concerto together, my brother and sister, when I was just 10 years old, walking into the living room, seeing that and hearing it. It's beautiful. All sounds you hear are her natural mantras, repeating spontaneously as the whole world worships her. That is, knowingly or unknowingly. Goddess Kali constitutes the letters of every alphabet, and each letter secretly bears the flower of her name. The singer of this song is overwhelmed and cries, "Wonderful, wonderful! The Divine Mother exists fully through every living creature. O wondering poet, whatever food you drink or drink you receive, offer them as oblation into the sacrificial fire of your body, and meditate intensely on her all-encompassing reality." This was a translation done by Lexixon, our founder, of this beautiful Ramprasad poem or song. He would recite it or sing it, and mostly they're songs. Lexixon did this, and he said, "Can you find in India the actual melody and song for that?" So when I went to India, I learned that, brought it back, sang it for him, so we could put his translation together with the actual Bengali. This is in Bengali. But this is beautiful, you see. She constitutes the letters of every alphabet. Oh, I mean, This is a daunting chart, a daunting tantra, you see, and we've gone through it once or twice before, but if I could run through it real quick for you, there are these 6 ways of attaining Brahmagyan: Kala, Tattva, Bhuvana, Varna, Pada, and Mantra. This is tantric, this is not Vedantic. So you can see how serious they are about words and letters and their sounds and phonetics and all of that, meanings. Because out of Om, that Om, has 4 stages it goes through. And it has to first be absolutely formless and clear light of Brahman. When it comes down, it develops a space, a subtle space where things are going to be put together. It's still empty, see, unmanifested. Then the next stage is Madhyama, a middling stage, where you'll find the thought of the object, its meaning, the sound it's going to have when it finally gets manifested, all put together in formulative style. And when it reaches the last stage, then all of those are put together, and that's what we're seeing here. But if you would take this all back, you'd see how everything gets dissolved and taken apart, and it becomes, objects then become thoughts, and thoughts consist of meaning and sound. And you just take it all back. That's a teaching called the 4 levels of the word, Om. And that's Vedic. But in Tantra, they say Kala means aspects of time, Tatra means categories, Bhuvana means regions. Those are the kingdoms of heaven within you. Varna means letters, Pada means words, and Mantra means utterances. So if I was to give you a quick tour of it, we would say that manifestation is in the nature of reality. Kala, with its 5 main forms, that is Nivritti, Pratishta, Vidya, Shanta, and Shantatitya. Kala, in its 5 main forms, presides over all cosmic principles, pure, mixed, and impure. It simultaneously assists the unmanifest to transition into the manifest, and acts as a guide for all seekers. As possessor of Shakti at its highest level, Kali is the supreme Shakti and the prime mover of everything. Kala really means Kali, also means time. At the same time absorbed in reality, incapable of being differentiated from it, like water from its wetness, like fire from its heat, Sri Ramakrishna used to say, can't take the Shakti power away from Brahman. At the same time, it's incapable of being differentiated from it. So this is Kala, this is one whole aspect that you would use to get Brahmagyan, knowledge of your true self or knowledge of Brahman. You'd put it together with Tattva, which means beginning with the elements and proceeding to Shiva and Shakti, inward, consciousness is, as experience, is made up of worlds, which are planes of existence consisting of tattvas. The tattvas you know well. Let me run them down for you. Earth, fire, water, air, ether, odor, flavor, visibility, tangibility, audibility, excreting, procreating, locomotion, handling, speaking, smelling, tasting, seeing, hearing, feeling. Those are the physical components, principles. Step into the mind, they're psychical. Mind, thought, intellect, ego, soul, cosmic laws, time in its phases, time itself, higher knowledge, subtle matter, and attraction, raga. That's the tattvas in the mind. See? Now, spiritual tattvas are inner guidance, spiritual wisdom, non-duality, primal sound, nada, and supreme deity, Ishvara. So all of this is what they would look at when they say tattva. It's a more extensive list than Patanjali's 24 tattvas, but you can see that it's much the same in many aspects. Come next to Bhuvana. Remember, we're taking it off of this. Mother Kali constitutes the letters of every alphabet, and each letter secretly bears the flower of her name. So she's in all of these. You could go to the particle theory for deeper understanding if that's the way you think of it. Bhuvana, 224 realms lie within 14 universes, 7 higher and 7 lower. This is a system that even Egypt and Judaism borrowed from India. There's mentions of 7 this and 7 that. Basically, you've got well, does this strike a chord in your memory? Om, Bhur, Bhuva, Svaha. You ever heard that? That's the Gayatri mantra. It's chanted by millions and millions of, probably there's not any mantra or utterance chanted by more people in the world than that every day. So Bhur, Bhuva, Swaha are the first three of those 7. And then it goes into Janaha, Tapaha, Brahmaloka, Satyaloka. I mean, it has deeper and deeper realms where you get beyond Bhur, earth, Bhuvaha, or Bhuvar. Hard to find a word in English. Nether realms, elemental, and then finally heaven, what we call lower and higher heaven. Svaha. But then you go beyond heaven in our tradition. Oh, speaking about heaven, that's rather a glib subject to the Vedantist. Who said that? Swami Vivekananda. Yeah, rather a glib subject. So, 7 higher, 7 lower, ranging gross to subtle. Some correspond with the 5 elements, others to subtler worlds which exist beyond the physical plane, located in those spiritual vortexes called chakras. Essentially, all realms of existence lie within. All realms of existence. This one too. This is in your mind right now. This room is in your mind. This house is in your mind. This city is in your mind. This country is in your mind. The world with its continents and 7 oceans in your mind. It's a state of mind. And Maya is making it look otherwise. Your consciousness being allocated only outward to the 5 senses and 5 objects, and then you can say to those people it's an actual world. But it's unreal to the Vedantist. Unreal. Non-essential. Relative. You start borrowing words for it. Empty. Non-eternal, changing. So there they are. Actually, we're right there. So Bhur, Bhuva. Let's use the full ones. Bhur Loka, Bhuvar Loka, Svar Loka, Mahar Loka, Jana Loka, Tapa Loka, Brahma Loka, or Satya Loka sometimes it's called. So all of these 7 are the kingdoms of heaven within you, what Christ talked about. They're the many chambers of my Father's mansion. You think he was just like throwing things out? Let's see, what do I call him today? See, he's trying to get people to go inside and give up fishes and loaves and breads and huts and wives and nets and rivers, or to realize that those words have profound meaning. Mother Kali's in every river. She's in every wife and husband. She's in every fish. See, as the essence. The fishiness of fish, the riverness of rivers. You see, there she is. And the words are a direct key to that. If you're just using low-grade mantras to your neighbor, hi, how's the weather? Yeah, it's fine, I think. I haven't checked today. That's the low-grade mantra. It's pretty much breaking the ice is its only use. Maybe you can get a little deeper. But there are mantras that correspond with each of these realms that get deeper and deeper and deeper. Right now, you are not in the world. You are with me in the Jnanaloka. And you have been for the last 2 hours, except for the break. This is where I live. This is where I dwell. And I learned it from others who live there all the time. 24/7. Or 24/100. 24 hours a day, 100 years of their life. My teacher lived till he was 90, in his 90s. So keep it in perspective. So Kala, Tattva, and Bhuvana. These are 6 ways to realize Brahman in Tantra. You might say Vedanta has its 4 yogas, and Tantra has its 6 ways of realizing Brahmagyan. And pretty much it all has to do with words, their meanings, their sound, the particles in them, which are intelligent particles. But if you go deeper, it's going to be no particle, Mother herself, formless. That's the secret behind it. Next comes, there are 7 nether regions, but no, nether mind. Don't get into those. Nether mind. So I get a kick out of myself, sorry. Patala, Rasatala, Mahatala, Talatala, Sutala, Vitala, Atala. These are the patalas. They're famous in Buddhism, for instance, particularly Tibetan Buddhism teaches these freezing, cracking hells, these burning, blistering hells. They're not spaces in time, locations in time either. They're places in your mind where the soul goes after death. Even during its life it can go there. I mean, you're here with me in the Gyanaloka, next door someone's in hell. See? Why me? See, that's the mantra of the worldly person, why me? But what's the mantra of the aspirant? Who am I? And what's the mantra of the realized soul?
I am that.
I am, yes, or I am that. I am that, tat. You see, tat in Sloka 30. So next comes Varna, the garland of letters, or Varna Mala. Mala is like what you wear around your neck, is a science of 51 alphabets or languages, which is an expression of the Mahashakti, the essence of indivisible truth which reveals the mystery of creation. Shristi Rahasya is Tantra's way of talking about. And when they say creation, they mean projection. Creation is not a good word to use because it goes back to, can we get something out of nothing? No, we can't. So creation is not a good word. And God is not a creator. God has nothing to do with this world. That's done by the Trinity from Om on down, from the cosmic mind, and God stays aloof, transcendent. The only thing that's never been defiled by the tongue of man is Brahman. Who said that?
Master.
Sri Ramakrishna. Yes, the great master. Srishti Rahasya vibrates via particles of intelligence, chit matras, and includes three main elements: matrikas, shabda, and artha. That's alphabets, word, and meaning. They're taking this and concentrating on these things that you learned in grade school in a wholly different manner than you learned them in grade school. The point in grade school was to learn these for an education so that you could get money and be successful so you could take care of your parents when they died. Your parents are vipers in a hole in the ground called the world. Let them take care of themselves. Or be a good son and go back and take care, like I did with my mother. I gave her mantra diksha and I shared the Vedanta with her. But at that time it wasn't mother and son anymore. It was guru and disciple. And that's a higher relationship than mother and son or father and daughter. That is the highest relationship. You find a guru who's authentic, can transmit you the teachings like Swami Sheshananda did to us. And he will not pose as your father for long. He'll say, Namrichor Nashanka Name Jati Beda Pita Naiva Me Naiva Mata Na Janmaha Chirananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham I have no death because I was never born. Namrityur, no death. I have no father, I have no mother. Not even a birth have I. Who am I then? I am Shiva, I am Shiva. So Shankara is Nirvana Shatkam. That's how the teacher will teach you. My teacher used to say, I have no friends. He wasn't going to mince words with you or swap spiritual spit. See, it wasn't his point to be there. He wanted to fry your fish and go fry others. I asked Lex Sixon, why are you going to Swami Sheshananda? I think you're probably already enlightened. He said, my dish is still in the oven. That old man's going to cook me. He doesn't take any nonsense, you see. Jai Shri Guru. All right. Devoid of Matrika Shakti, consciousness could not reveal itself. So, talking about Srishti Rahasya, the essence of projection and how it all works, this all happens from the Word. Why? Because in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. That's three different things. When the Vedantist hears statements that Jesus said, he unwraps them in a different way and much deeper, because they know the secret of words and how powerful they are. It's not just something to hear intellectually and then develop a little faith and live in a faith-based tradition. You have to enter into the wisdom traditions. Baptism is a little sprinkling of water by some unqualified person. But the Guru sprinkles the very essence of wisdom into you. Mantra Diksha gives you the power of the word with the Tripura Sundari in it. That's mother in three forms. And you have to uncover that. The sound of the mantra out, Om Namah Shivaya, or say Dalai Lama's Om Mani Padme Hum, whatever mantra it might be, that's the sound outwardly. But he's saying here, all sounds you hear are her natural mantras. And each word contains Mother Kali's essence. So Ramprasad has come upon that because of listening to his guru. You see, he's come upon that secret and he's developed it inside himself, and now he's a luminary. Worlds being objects, even Ishvara, all evolve from Matrika. Even the highest form of God comes from Matrika, these particles of intelligence, mother intelligence. Pada is fifth and penultimate. Pada means the construction of meaning of whole words springing from Matrika is what is called Pada. The arrangement of these words into statements and profound utterances is constitutive of mantras. Right? And that was basically what we had here in this sloka. Profound utterances is what we took up yesterday. To truly listen is to pursue, by means of profound sentences, their powerful import. That's what the Rishi in this Upanishad is referring to, and this is how Tantra would put it. Finally, you have mantra. We know a little about that. There are a few Sanskrit words that we've actually befriended, and you'll hear around: guru, karma, maya, maybe. Mantra is the science of cosmic sound, direct knowledge. Divine spontaneous action proceeds from it. Tattvas form the objective side of experience, while mantra forms the subjective side. By practicing these two aspects, one attains spiritual ascendancy. Mantra then is special knowledge which, when contemplated, reveals the otherwise unseen truth, that the universe is full of Brahman. Most people will never see that or think of it that way. I wasn't going to bring it up, but singing that song caused me to do so. (36) Mind's modifications with regard to the self are uncognized in that state. They are only inferred as passing after quitting the state of samadhi. So in samadhi you would never see these modifications. But after samadhi passes and you come down to the relative plane, then you're aware of all these modifications. So it's like saying what I said when I started out the class. Om pramadine nasandeha kim karishami vrittiman. Ignorance isn't real. So how can it cause any real doubt? All of these modifications you see belong to the realm of the unreal, the relative plane of existence, the intellectual frame of reference. If you know how the intellect does it in any given way, then you can meditate on them, like alambanas, stations for meditation. You can even take earth, fire, and water and meditate on them. And when you meditate on water deep enough, and you come to know water as in all its aspects and how it comes out of deep sleep, the thought of it, then you'll find out you drowned last lifetime, and your karma will be expunged, and you won't fear water anymore. Or you burned in a fire, or you got caught in a landslide, or you got suffocated or strangled. These are elements. they come to you at birth, they're there in life, and in death, the Tibetan Buddhist said, you divorce yourself from them one at a time as you die. You let go of air, earth, fire, water, and ether. When you let go of earth, you itch and you feel uncomfortable. And you let go of water, your mouth dries up. And you let go of fire, your eyes burn. And if they say, just wait, it's just letting go of the 5 elements. You can do it. There will be light after that process. Remain conscious as you die. If you have that one conscious death, you can have a conscious birth. Maybe you're first. Then get back to work. Use this life for what it's meant for. Spiritual practice. Clarify, then intensify. This is clarification. It's up to you to intensify. Let's not take a chart for that sloka, but go right on to 37. Thousands of karmas, speaking of the devil, accumulated in beginningless cycles of transmigratory life, and they are dissolved by means of concentration. Then pure virtue begins to flourish. 38. The best knowers of yoga call this concentration the cloud of virtues, since it rains down the floodwaters of goodness in 1,000 streams. The Upanishads aren't beyond getting poetic and inspirational. A beautiful combination of very clear, austere, concise statements made in brevity. At the same time, they can turn around and just inspire the hell out of you. Meditate upon the sorrowless ocean of light, seated, and they combine to convince people like us, maybe too rational or too attached to outer things, and to begin to turn in, go backwards into the kingdoms of heaven. So back to 37, I read 2 slokas there. Thousands of karmas accumulated in beginningless cycles of transmigratory life are dissolved by means of concentration. Then pure virtues begin to flourish. So there I put up here the 2 yogas of the Maitri avatar for you to look at. And the one I'm going to concentrate on today is just Mano Buddha Yoga. Holy Mother said Ramakrishna left her behind to prove the motherhood of God. And she lived into the 1900s, and less longer than he did, who passed away, I think, 1896. But she remained on, became the mother of the Ramakrishna order, and initiated hundreds and thousands of people into the mantra, and gave it to my teacher, who gave it to me. And so it works its way like this underground river into places, and then it has to be there a while, to find its way to nourish the surface. She says, where is there any good in doing works and practices without collectedness of mind? Krishna says in the Gita, if you do any action, make sure it's not in restlessness and it's not in slothfulness, because that's where karmas come from. And then you're going to have to regain the concentration of mind, like the Upanishad says here, to do away with those overlays, those problems. She continues, grace descends only after concentration of mind. I guess that's why people aren't getting grace very well. Even your work and service demand this. That's concentration, right? Collectedness of mind. Therefore, you should know that it is improper to deprive living beings of what is their due. In this regard, compassion is knowledge. And that refers to Jnanodaya Yoga, that any time you can teach wisdom, that's the highest compassion. Not feeling sorry for someone, or helping them a little bit, or helping an old lady across the street, or trying to do away with the suffering of the world. You'll never be able to do that. The world is suffering. Did you see Buddha's first noble truth? Suffering is. So you're going to have to find another way around suffering, or above, or past suffering, and help where you can, but have no anticipation. That's why Buddha said, have no hope for me for the world. He knew he couldn't help it. He just helped certain souls that would listen to him. Those he could help. The world's going to be the way it is. And how did he say that? Birth, growth, disease, decay, old age, and death are the world. 6 transformations, he calls them, or 6 billows. That's that billow word. But let's look at Mano-Buddhi yoga, these bullet points. This is the yoga of the mind that the Rishi here talks about. First point, complete concentration of mind on the chosen ideal. That is, thoughts of reality alone. You find your ideal, you will get a mantra for that ideal from an authentic teacher, and then you concentrate on that. Of people writing me saying, oh, I took a mantra. 2 years later, I took another mantra. That teacher didn't do it for me. I went and got another mantra, another teacher. And this creates a habit of spiritual menu tasting, and you never dig one deep hole. Maybe you haven't found your teacher yet. That's possible. But and you're in an extended period of dating. You see. But you know where that can lead. So you have to finally find one authentic path with an authentic teacher, with a mantra that's good enough to penetrate you through Maya, and put your full concentration on it. That's called ishtam. Ishtanishta in Sanskrit means concentration on one chosen ideal. It will be Christ for the Christians, and Buddha for the Buddhists, and Krishna for the Hindus. Well, the Hindus have many more, but one ideal that suits you best, and then go deep with it. Second bullet point, contemplating the chosen ideal as the one and only reality. Again, thoughts of reality alone, get thee behind me, everything else. And the monks will do that 24/7, maybe. Householder, you'll have to do that every time you sit to meditate, and then try and take it out of meditation into eyes open meditation, as we say, and keep that ideal in the background of the mind even when you work. But definitely keep it in the foreground when you do your practice, and that will begin to transform the mind. 3, scrutiny of ego to perceive the fallacy of ownership and agency. What does that remind you of? Yesterday's chart. The 3 levels of obstacles, you see. The sense of ownership, sense of agency, and sense of separation from God. Wipe those away. They're gross to subtle, to causal. So the ego's causal. And then the first sense of ownership, I have this is mine, I will get this tomorrow, and so forth, and I'll go to other countries and meet foreign peoples and kill them and take their goods. All that is gross. But what's subtle then is sense of agency. I am working. I am the doer of my actions. Shakale tomari icha, as we sang yesterday. See, O Mother, everything happens by thy own sweet will. All work belongs to you. Others only call it their own. So give away the sense of agency, and then you get to the causal level. You have to get this sense of ego. So scrutiny of the ego to perceive the fallacy of ownership and agency. It's just right out of that chart, or that chart came right out of this. That's a practice you can do. It's not a very detailed practice that you have to follow some many-limbed system. You can just take that as your practice and find out how to do it from your teacher, what tools to use. Sri Ramakrishna gave a story once that a man wanted to get on a certain rooftop. So the best view would be up there. So what are his obstacles? Well, he can't just climb up there because whoever owns that might come out with a shotgun or a broom, in the case of India. So you have to get the permission of the owner of the house. That's going to take some doing. He goes, what do you want up on my roof for? He's suspicious right away, you see. And he said, but then once he got the permission, then he had to get some ropes and go to a climbing expert and find out how to keep himself up on the roof and find good weather. And there's a whole host of things he had to go through in order to get to that roof so he could have that view. This is kind of what's being said here, you see. Step by step. And next, analyzation of personal karma to attenuate and alleviate it. If your karma comes back to you right away, if you do an act that's insincere or unconsidered, then you're an advanced spiritual aspirant. And your karma comes back to you that day or the next day. But if it takes a long time to come back, then you're not advanced. And that's where you get into trouble. That's why the mantra becomes why me, because things are happening to you now, not only from years ago, but from past lifetimes that are fructifying right now. And you don't know where they came from. And that's why karma is an inexorable, inscrutable law that's very flummoxing for the human mind. And we'd rather put grace in its place, or we'd rather put salvation in its place. But karma is the God here of this universe. There's no grace here, there's no God here. It's karma that's running everything. You have put yourself in the realm of karma, cause and effect. Science should realize that, but they don't realize it on any level except the outer, where two mosquitoes collide in dense gases, and what happens to them? Or like Swamiji said, this bull's running at me, and I push the woman behind me, and I stand there, and as the bull runs, he says, how far will my bulk be thrown when that bull hits me? When one object hits another. This is what was going through his mind as this bull was rushing at him. So it wasn't death or fear or any of that, just calculating, this is interesting. What will happen to this worthless body when that worthless body hits it? So that's cause and effect on a physical level. But there are, of course, deeper ramifications to it that you will have to pursue if you want to get rid of these karmas that are plaguing you in your life. You want your bliss unalloyed and uninterrupted, don't you? And how many people are getting that? See, it's interrupted mainly by karma. This karma connects to your ancestors, a lot of it. That's why Buddha was here, to break through that chain of ancestor worship. India was under the chain of that. You see, the beautiful song written by Swamiji, you see, about Swami Vivekananda, "O breaker, snapper of this world's chains." So if you take an ideal, it says Ishtam here, then and meditate on that as the one and only reality, she will snap the chains of bondage in you, which are karma, and you will neutralize and alleviate them in this lifetime. Then you can be born free. Not like a lion, born free, but like a lion of Vedanta. They call Vivekananda the lion of Vedanta. Knowledge of the full identity of the self with Brahman is rather an ultimate goal. What is the difference between the apparently divided self, Jiva, and the ultimate self, Shiva, or Paramashiva, and Jiva and Shiva? See, I need to find that those are one. You see, and what's keeping me from knowing that? The apparently individualized self, ego, is a problem here. And it's at the causal level. It's the first thing I took when I separated myself from God. Not that you can ever separate yourself from God, but you somehow managed it as a dream. It's a dream separation. It's not real. It's like a line drawn on water. The ego. It's very, very difficult. Swami Sheshananda used to say, the ego is like an uninvited guest at a party. You go up and ask it, when are you leaving? And the ego says, I'll think about it. It's got free food and housing and friends to, posture in front of, and so yeah, that's a deep problem. Penultimately, the bullet point is selfless performance of japa for the benefit of mankind. I was sitting with Lex Hickson, our founder, in SRV, New York, some decades ago actually, and that institution is near Woodstock, so some of the hippies out of the 80s were coming and being there with us, and they had gotten into some Indian spirituality and so forth. And Lex was there, and I was there at the table. A few of us were there, and so Lex was always having his beads going. He was like talking to us with his beads going. And he wasn't talking to us; he was like enjoying the sweetness of the mantra, God's name. And one of these hippie-type fellows said to him, "Oh man, yeah, that's cool. You do the japa, the beads. I do that too. There are 108 beads, and I do 100 for myself and 8 for the world." And Lex said, "I do all 108 for the world." So, selfless performance of japa for the benefit of mankind. Of course, you don't want to be a fool, get a mantra, take up a set of beads and start doing things for the world. Transferring all your imperfections to other people, you see. So you're going to have to do some practice, and you can understand it as words in many different ways, teachings, dharma, as being ultimately empty, or 6 ways of Brahmagyan, how you're going to have to understand them, all sorts of ways that you can go about this. Do some qualifying of the mind, ripening of the ego. A ripe ego is no problem. That's apakva ahankara, Ramakrishna said. But pakva ahankara is a big problem. It's like a balloon blown up in a room. Nobody can get in. See? But it's empty in there. Ramakrishna said, ego's like an onion. It's all peelings with no center. And makes you cry. Finally, bullet point, overcoming all obstacles via reliance on mano-yoga and grace. Self-effort and grace have to go together. Can't rely on grace alone. Or prayer. It's not going to get you anywhere, and it hasn't gotten us very far, has it? So what you need to do is, like the wish-fulfilling tree, you see. If you go near the tree and speak your desire, then it will hear and grant it. But people don't go near the tree, they speak their desire from a distance. That's prayer, you see. Oh Lord, give me this, give me that. And so what does going near the tree mean? Meditation. That's where prayer is not enough. You have to sit, empty your mind, find the light, and say something to it. You can't just randomly go around speaking into the physical ether and expect God to come down from heaven. There's no heaven up there. In fact, you've got it good down here because you've got 5 elements. And up there, as far as we know so far, there's only 3. So here's your prayer answered right here. This is your prayer. You ask for this. Life force. And some of that is ill-considered, that you ask for it. You should ask for pure love, pure knowledge, and pure devotion, Sri Ramakrishna said. But you ask for the worlds of name and form and time and space with plenty of objects to enjoy. And then you got attached to them, forgetting that the objects actually came out of you in the first place, so you have it all inside of you. Then it came out of you, you lost it, and you started weeping. It doesn't make sense, you see. You're not following even rationale and reason to its final conclusion. You're lost somewhere, in some theological quandary or some godless science. Final quote here by Sri Krishna. Mentally resigning all deeds to me, having me as your highest goal, and resorting to the practice of buddhi yoga, fully fix your mind upon me. So all the way back to Sri Krishna's time, and in the Gita we found this mano buddhi yoga was there. And she has brought it current thousands of years later, and pretty much given us what the essential parts, the dynamics of it are. Let's take one more sloka in our time, 38. The best knowers of yoga call this concentration the rain cloud of virtues. Dharma, mega, samadhi. Both the Buddhists and the Vedantists share that term. Dharma, mega, samadhi. Since it rains down the floodwaters of goodness in 1,000 streams. So I just couldn't resist it any longer. The rain cloud of virtues was mentioned by Patanjali. Then Swamiji came along and said, and quoted Patanjali saying it. And in fact, I think that is the first quote at the top of this chart. This is a new chart. You haven't seen it unless you were watching the live streaming in San Francisco last week. Herein lies the secret, Vivekananda says. Says Patanjali, the father of yoga, quote, when a man rejects all superhuman powers, then he attains the rain cloud of virtues, unquote. He sees God, he becomes God, and helps others become the same. This is all I have to preach. Doctrines have been expounded enough. There are books by the millions. Oh, for an ounce of practice. You heard this saw this last week in San Francisco. So This is Vivekananda talking about Patanjali's mention of rain-cloud of virtues. That's a kind of samadhi that happens prior to kaivalya, which means divorcing yourself from nature. Yoga and Buddha both, Patanjali and Buddha both say you have to get beyond nature because nature is the form-producing machine. And we know how subtle that goes now because the seeds are also an unmanifested nature for it. It's not just out here that we have to renounce. We have to go back to the seeds of nature and not water them anymore. If you want to be formless essence and free. If you have to come back here, come back with the sword of discriminating wisdom. Don't leave home without it. It's better than a visa. So this rain-cloud of virtues, Dharma Mega Samadhi, is what I wanted to put side by side against the occult powers. Because when a man rejects all superhuman powers, then he attains the rain-cloud of virtues. What are the superhuman powers? Astabala Siddhis, basically. They're the occult powers. And back thousands of years ago, they were different. Krishna says you can't attain God if you even have one of them. And Ramakrishna in this day and age said they're like crow droppings by the side of the road. So obviously great souls are not advising that you gain them. What are they? Warlike, domineering behavior, selfish and covetousness, being jealous and meddlesome, being materialistic and possessive, being curious and manipulative of nature and its powers, being attracted to psychic powers instead of God, using life for enjoying desires, influencing others through wealth and vanity, and seeking mastery over the world. Those are occult powers. They're called anima, lagima, vyapti, prakamya, mahima, ishitva, vashitva, and kama vashayita. These are what the seers warn away from. It's not that they don't get used by worldly people. Even seers may use them, like Christ showing himself walking on the water. You know, I believe that Christ didn't walk on water. He wasn't using an occult power. He was projecting himself via sankalpa to the men in the boat, you see. It wasn't him walking on the water, it was his subtle body. When Paul saw Christ along the road to Damascus, no one else saw Christ. Christ didn't all of a sudden appear to him. He was in a formless state, meditating, sending an image of himself called a subtle body to Paul only. See? This vision is for you alone. Return to sender. It's like a postalgram, the subtle body. You're not seeing an actual physical thing. That physical thing died a long time ago. But he has other bodies and other projections he can use. So that's not really an occult power. Well, producing fishes and loaves, that might be, but we weren't there, and we're not going to judge it. But there are these 8 occult powers. I mean, you see these kinds of beings in India laying on a bed of nails and climbing a rope and disappearing, these things people have seen, and those are occult powers. So India knows them very well, and they don't think very highly of them. They think Dharma Mega Samadhi is much better. What is Dharma Mega Samadhi? Non-violent, peaceful behavior, being generous and content, being gracious and indrawn, God-loving and unattached, transcendent and respectful of nature, pursuing higher wisdom, using life for God realization, striving to attain and share freedom with others, and seeking mastery over the self. That is, being nonviolent and peaceful instead of warlike and domineering. There's across the board, you see. What's your country doing? What's your society doing? What are your leaders preaching? What's your science intended for? My teacher used to say, oh, you Westerners here, and you Christians too, your motto seems to be, pray to God, but keep the powder keg dry. There's gunpowder over there in case things don't go my way and God doesn't answer my prayer. Because I didn't go close enough to the wish-fulfilling tree and ask what I wanted. Maybe I wouldn't have gone to other countries and stolen it from them if I had have done this right. So, ashteya, non-covetousness, is a yogic principle along with nonviolence, ahimsa, that we should begin to re-examine in the West, especially since we're getting so far afield in these wars and so serious about mastering the world rather than mastering ourselves. See? Influencing others through wealth and vanity. Get a jar of makeup, smear it on your face, go out into the world and try and attract some person through deception. I'm really beautiful. Underneath I'm not, but I'm going to cover that up. And underneath doesn't just mean the face, it means this hornet's nest of karma you have that you're going to introduce someone else to so that you divorce in 2 years. Oh, she was so beautiful. Oh, he was so handsome. It's all vanity and vexation of spirit. It's all deception. I've got young men right now who are swearing off of women in their 20s. Not because there was some unrequited love, because they see this is deception. And they don't even know they're being deceiving. And they don't know they've been deceived by the cosmetic industry. It's mahima, trying to make things look great when they're not. They're not telling the truth. Men who smear cologne all over their bodies, and they're even putting makeup on now. They're like walking painted meat cakes. See? That's an expression used by my teacher. He pissed off quite a few women saying that. They're like painted meat cakes. See? Well, I'm not coming back here again. But it's true. And on down the line, you see, these occult powers take on a new face in this day and age. When a society has everything, opulence and all that, then it can start producing things that are stupid. I heard about a factory that was putting out like 50 million plastic bunnies, you see, that don't do anything. And on and on. And the things that could be good for you or could help your life are becoming defective. They're not working. What to speak of trying to unwrap them? You tried to unwrap anything today? I mean, unwrap the scriptures would be better, but if you have to unwrap a purchased product, try and get into it. Good luck without a knife. It's all this occult power that's going on and its results, its effects. I think I've made my point about that, but right thinking leading to life, divine life and enlightenment, as compared to wrong thinking leading to suffering and rebirth and ignorance. That's basically how you could head Dharma Mega Samadhi, as opposed to the 8 occult powers. And I know gurus, that is, so-called gurus, who are teaching occult powers are good. And I disagree. I think that that's at the root of our problem in the West nowadays. And we need to go towards this rain cloud of virtues. And this rain cloud of virtues, according to the father of yoga, are already in you. See, in typical Vedic fashion, they're already within you. You're overlooking them. And if you just do a little of this practice, they will start showering on you. So like you spent 20, 30 years trying to better yourself and be a good person and so forth. And morality didn't quite get through and you still have immorality in you. And virtue didn't quite work and you still have vice in you. And the dualities are still in operation. And they're all well and good in the realm of Maya. But then all of a sudden you start looking for the essence of the true nature through Vedanta and other great philosophies, if you want to call them that. And you find out that you open up a gate and the rain cloud of virtue showers upon you. And people looking on say, that's not fair. Why doesn't that happen to me? See, we say that about illumined souls. They're born in enlightenment. It should be telling you several things. Not that it's not fair. It's that they prepared themselves before they were born. That means there's another life. There was lives before it. That means you're in control of the situation. God didn't curse you and bless them. God's not involved in that. God's perfect. Doesn't need to worry about birth and death or perfection and non-perfection or practice or none. Leave that alone. See, this is your doing. See? And so if it is you're doing, you can make yourself perfect. You call that being cut in the image, right? That's the real meaning of Christ saying being cut in the image of God. It's that you made yourself. He wasn't there with a chisel and hammer. You constructed the karmas, you can be free of them. Mano Buddhi Yoga. Take it all into your own hands and do it in this lifetime. Be free. Ever free, never bound is what you will be saying about yourself from then on. So there are doctrines expounded enough, books by the millions, but for an ounce of practice. You make yourself through this sadhana. Sadhana is a dharma, then sadhana, then dharma mega samadhi, if you want. Qualify yourself, make yourself, your mind pure, your senses and body as pure as possible, and then move on towards that enlightenment which you say you are seeking. But maybe you're not quite serious about attaining it yet, and time's a passing. See? I'll put it off to another lifetime. My teacher used to laugh about that. You see, people love the world, and they say, and he says to them, when are you going to love God? I'll love God when he begins to do things for me. I'll love the world in the meantime. As if the world's going to be give you everything you want. Sri Ramakrishna used to say, Maya, the world, is like a cat with her claws out, and you're a mouse. See? But loving God is like a cat with her claws retracted, and you're her kitten. See? She's got her lips over her fangs. Come with me, kitty. Puts you here and there in the world, and you just go, self-surrendered, loving her and her alone. So that's the difference between what happens to the world and what happens to the devotees. It's a good word, devotee. It's good to be a devotee, especially up until the time when you can be a luminary. I think that chart was a quick study. There's Sri Ramakrishna's saying, the 8 occult powers are like crow droppings along the side of the road. No one in their right mind would like them. There's the Om. There's a picture of Mother herself standing on Lord Shiva. He's fallen into a swoon by seeing her. Incomparable beauty. And the final quote, did we take it yet? It's by the father of Vedanta, Vedavyas. The state of superconsciousness, or samadhi, is often called rain cloud of virtues, inasmuch as it showers nectar-like drops of immortality on living beings and the world through higher wisdom. All the negativities, like the hosts of vasanas, that's desires, and base human minds are then entirely destroyed. Thus the rain cloud of virtues is the name given to samadhi in the Ashtanga Yoga of Patanjali. Not the Hatha Yoga. So just asanas, not just breathing exercises, pumping your lungs like a set of bellows. But these higher limbs, see, pratyahara, renounce the objects, get free of the objects, both inside and outside. And then get concentration. When you get concentration, most of the battle's over. Then use that concentration for thoughts on reality alone, meditation, and then get samadhi. That's Ashtanga Yoga. Even before Hatha and Pranayam, there were yamas and niyamas. They were nonviolence was the first one. Truthfulness was another. Not coveting the goods of others was another. Study of scriptures was another. Love of God in form was another. So these are all antagonistic or opposite to those rain cloud of virtues. So that's a new chart. This is my first showing of it, except in San Francisco last week. Rain cloud of virtues as opposed to the 8 occult powers. we have 10 minutes or so. We can at least open up a next sloka before we bring this to a close. When the load of innate impulses get dissolved without residue by means of this cloud of virtues, and heaps of karma, good and evil, are totally eradicated, that which shines forth immediately, unobstructed, yields spontaneous awareness, as clear as a fruit in the palm of one's hand. Well, if that ain't a cue for me, I don't know what is. Here's a stotram called Fruit in the Palm of Your Hand. I'll sing you a verse or two of it that illustrates his point. Mukha basago darpane drishamano Mukhatvam pritakthena navasti vastu Chida basako desha jivopi tadvat Sanicho palabdis swarupahamatma Yadarpana bhava abhasahanau Mukam vijite kalpana hinamekam Tata vidyate kalpana sayoyam Sanicho palabdis swarupahamatma Manas chakshuradir vimuktaha swayam yo Manas chakshuradir manas chakshuradir Manas chakshuradir agamya swarupaha Sanicho palabdis swarupahamatma Fruit in the Palm of the Hand by Hasta Amalaka Acharya. He was a student of Shankara. He says, in just 3 of these many verses, comforting and life-giving, like the quality of warmth and fire, whose nature is always awake, all abiding, and one without a second, who animates inert objects, mind and senses, and engages them in action. That self-aware entity am I, sublime and indivisible. As the reflection in a mirror is identical with the object reflected, so is the universe identical with the self, revealed in the mirror of pure mind. Thus are living beings perfect images of the eternal subject, the undying self. And that limitless self am I, identical with the Supreme Being. So remove this reflective surface and the form disappears. What remains is the formless essence, the objectless reality. Like this, when the external mind is stilled and focused on reality, what is left is oneness, the eternal abode, my true existence. And this just goes on and on and on, verse after verse of non-dual level of things, you see. No mention of, say, practice, or there's a little mention of neti, I'm not this, but mostly it's all I am, and this is why, and this is how the universe and Maya and everything else fits into that. As the master of the self, not trying just to master a little tawdry little world, you see, and its unreal objects. So objects to them are reflections, but they're identical. You know, the teaching is if you look at a little puddle of water in the hoof print of a cow in Death Valley, it's about as low as you can get, right? But that reflection of the moon causes you to look up and find the real moon. So that means in this world you will find teachings that reflect the ultimate reality if you have the eye to see. We have 5 minutes remaining, so I won't go into another chart until February when I came back for Sri Ramakrishna's birthday puja. But I will say this, that Hasta Amalaka was a young man who was as all intents and purposes, was mute, deaf, and dumb. He was a Brahmin priest, son of a Brahmin priest, so he had to make his living by being able to talk and explain and listen. So the boy was pretty old, never said a word, and so forth. They didn't know what was wrong with him. So Shankara came to town. He was traveling India, the four cardinal places. Shankara was a great soul. He was a soul that was illumined when he was 8 years old. And so he went around the world, around India, and giving teachings. He would set up temples that the Buddhists had destroyed, and then he would sit outside in the courtroom and preach non-duality while those who preferred God with form went in the temple to sit and offer flowers and so forth. So he was sitting outside the temple one day when this Brahmin priest came with his son. And he bowed down to Shankara and said, "Oh, I've been waiting for something like this, a great soul to come to my village. You need to help my son. He doesn't speak, seems not to hear," and so forth. And what can we do? He can't follow his vocation as his father, as a Brahmin priest. So Shankara turned to him and said, "Who are you? What are you doing here?" And the boy said his first words. Naham manusho Naham manusho na cha deva yaksho na brahmana kshatriya vaishya shudraha na brahmana kshatriya vaishya shudraha Bhikshurna chaham nijabodha rupam. So the first words that came out of this boy's mouth were perfectly articulated. I am not a human, in answer to the question, who are you? I'm not a human, nor am I a god. I'm not a being inhabiting celestial realms either. I'm not a priest, which probably his father didn't like hearing. I'm not a priest, a warrior, a merchant, or a menial worker. I am neither monk, householder, hermit, nor wanderer. I am the ever-conscious eternal self, Atman, infinite and pervading everything. So of course, the father was shocked, see? But they were also elated. My boy speaks, he hears. See? So he was waiting to say this all to his realization from a past lifetime to a being like Shankara. And so the father was, oh boy, let's go home, you see. 2 days later, Astamalaka, who was his later named, fruit in the palm of the hand, who's probably the author of this song, left home with Shankara and wandered India. So that is a good way of ending this class with you. The second class of this visit, this Dharma visit, had only 2 classes, and we'll have the Seattle retreat next week, which will be very intensely involved in this kind of wisdom, using the Sita Upanishad as our guiding text. That's one of the 7 goddess Upanishads. So I hope you can come. You're welcome. Your friends are welcome. And next year's schedule for SRV, which will appear in Nectar of Non-Dual Truth magazine, is being formulated as I speak. So we will get that to you so you can plan your next year around these 4 visits that I make to San Francisco ashrams, Portland SRV ashram, and then of course back home in Hawaii, where you can always tune in on our Sunday live streaming classes. 3 hours different, sometimes 2. So here, let's end with a chant. Om Tachnayo, Om Tachnayo Ravrini Mahe, Gatung Yagyaya, Gatung Yena Pataye, Daivi Swastarastu Naha, Swastir Manusebhyaha, Urdvam Jagatu Besajam, Samno Astu Dvipade Sam Chatushpate, Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May we make a sincere and humble offering of the small self into the great self. May we always delight in this offering. May we always revere the Lord and Mother of all sacrifices. May divine blessings be upon us. May peace be unto the entire human race. May well-being, health, and prosperity then also abide among us. Om, peace, peace, peace. May peace be unto us, and may peace be unto all. Om.